Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Access the Creational Energy of the Universe. Explore the four paths of creation spirituality to revitalize your work, well-being, and evolution. My name is Stephen Dyna. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and today is really a special blessing for me because we're getting to bring two eminent voices together who have collaborated extensively, really offering a new paradigm of science and spirituality that brings us into a state of awe and commitment to the unfolding of evolution that's really quite unique. So we're here with Matthew Fox, who's a renowned spiritual pioneer. He's the author of more than 40 books. And we're also here with Brian Thomas Swimme, who's professor of cosmology at the California Institute of Integral Studies, the director of the Third Story at Human Energy. So Matthew, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, Steve. Good to be with you and Brian both.
And Brian, thank you for coming as well.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
Great. Well, I'm excited. We're going to dive in with these two eminent teachers, and we also are going to have a brand new program with both of them that we're very excited about at Shift. It's called The Four Paths of Creation Spirituality, and we'll share a little bit more about that towards the end of the hour if you want to go further. So, Matthew, why don't we begin with you? And first of all, just set a little bit of context with your journey into creation spirituality and why you really see this as such a seminal perspective for the moment we're in as a planet.
Clearly, we're in a special moment with the planet, what we call global warming, climate change, call it what you will. And to me, it boils down to really one question: how sacred is the planet? And its demise, the path we're on at this time, will certainly be perilous, not only for our species, but for hundreds of millions of other species. And this process obviously has already begun. So it's a question of the sacred and rediscovering that that this, what we call Mother Nature, is bigger than all of us, and we have to listen to the wonder and the beauty and the new creation story, that we're getting from science that has brought 13.8 billion years for us to get here. And to me, that presumes that we were wanted. And why not stick around longer? So by bringing science and spirituality together, as Brian and I are doing, I think we're bringing two wisdom traditions together that can assist us to be strong, to be creative, to let go, and to care, and care deeply about future generations of our species and other species. So this is what creation spirituality is all about for me, and I think we're in a place where it's needed. And these four paths we're talking about, they help to demarcate and name the journey.
Great. Well, we'll dive into those four paths in a moment, but Brian, maybe share a little bit about your own journey of coming to creation spirituality as this powerful way to integrate both the scientific and spiritual wisdom streams.
Yeah, I came to the realization, along with a number of other people, that what we've discovered about the universe goes vastly beyond what any previous culture knew. Now, it sounds like I'm praising us, but there is something that is unique about the scientific venture. I mean, seriously, it just blew my mind as a young person, just learning the facts of how we evolved, from something so small and simple in this. So, but what's so mysterious is that right when humanity is discovering the deepest knowledge about the way the universe functions, right at that moment, we are, as Matt was just saying, we're tearing apart the ultimate creation of the universe. Simultaneously, we're stunned by what we have discovered about the universe, and yet we're ending life and we're ending the beauty of our planet. So I think this moment of drama is captured by H.G. Wells when he said something like, in our moment, it's a race between education, and catastrophe. So we want to be part of that movement of letting people really take in the nature of the universe and to see in the midst of this chaos a way forward.
So Matthew, I'd love to go back to you and maybe share some of those foundational dimensions of creation spirituality. What really is it? And then how does that lead into these four paths?
Well, of course, all indigenous humans begin their worldview with creation. And of course, they're living close to it. They were not in air-conditioned buildings or get very far from the fire when it got cold. So this is the most ancient tradition, far older than the Bible, and far older than Buddhism or Hinduism or any of these religions. And so this is one reason, I think, why we're calling on a lot of the wisdom of indigenous peoples today to bring us back to sanity and to get us out of this anthropocentric, this human-centered world bubble that we've been living in, especially in the West, for the last several hundred years. And so, and two, even the Bible begins with the universe. Genesis 1 is a creation story. And so too, in fact, are the Gospels begin with creation stories. So all religions try to get us set us up in a larger context, in a sacred context. But as Brian was saying, today's science comes on board and has the facts and the story anew, and it's even more overwhelming and more awe-filled and wondrous than our very many creation stories from around the world, from our various religions. So creation spirituality, I think, and because it all calls on science and this kind of wisdom, but also calls on the wisdom of our ancestors, whoever and wherever they may be. It's all about reinserting ourselves into the big picture that, as Brian said, we're bringing down the synchronicity of our having this new story on the one hand, but also being so aggressively solipsistic and narcissistic, which is Pope Francis's word, about our species, and ignoring all these others with which we survive and celebrate on this planet. So that's really the basic story that we want to articulate and deepen and tell ourselves and our young people how we make this journey together.
Brian, before we dive into the four paths, I'd love for you to just share a little bit about what do you see as some of those foundational understandings of creation spirituality that are most relevant for us right at this moment.
Yeah, I would love to. I just was going on and on about how wonderful all the knowledge is that we've gained, but the difficulty is the vessel that's holding this knowledge. I mean, the human being, so that science has an enabling assumption, and that is that the universe is out there, and we're here, and we're studying it out there. But and that is what it has enabled us to make all of these incredible discoveries. But what we've learned shows that enabling assumption is simply wrong. Here's what we've learned, that what is out there constructed what is in here. To study what is out there is circular, so that our bodies, our minds have been constructed by what we're studying. There's that reversal. No one expected to find that during the centuries of modern science. So then the question is, what is an appropriate form of consciousness to hold all of this knowledge? And Matt has pointed to the indigenous traditions, absolutely, so that Western civilization has to go through this transformation of a dualistic consciousness, and to take in this a unitive understanding of the universe and ourselves in relationship. And in addition to the indigenous traditions, there are spectacular mystics in our own Western tradition in the Middle Ages, and these two need to be brought in, and that's what creation spirituality really is doing.
Beautiful overviews of creation spirituality. I know we want to focus today on the four paths. So Matthew, why don't you outline the four paths and why each is important for really getting the most value from this perspective?
First path is the via positiva, and that is the path of awe and wonder, gratitude, joy, joy of being here. The poet Rilke says, existence is a miracle. And I think looking at science's study of the universe, the fact that our species arrived so late after 13.8 billion years, it is miraculous. And of course, the word miracle, it really means wondrous, that which causes wonder. So that's the via positiva. And you experience this in so many ways as a child and beyond. Then comes the via negativa, which is the pathway of silence and of letting go and of emptying our minds. It's the mind emptiness that precedes the mind fullness. So it's the path of meditation too, of stillness. In the scriptures, you have that great line, be still and learn that I am God. So the whole path of stillness and learning to let go and let be, that's equally profound, as is the via positiva. Then what comes next is the via creativa, the creativity, because that follows on our being emptied and our being in a state of deep listening. And for example, if we listen to science today and how perilous the planet is at this time, then what comes next is, well, what can we do about it? What can we give birth to in terms of remitting our footprints on this planet and changing our way of energy and so forth? That's all part of the via creativity, because it's about creativity. It's our response. It's about moral imagination. And then the last path, the via transformativa, is a way of naming our social responsibility and about taking our moral imaginations into history and into our communities and working together to do something. And that brings forth this powerful energy that humans have that we call compassion, which is identified around the world as something divine. It's a sharing of the divine. And the Dalai Lama says, we can do away with all religion, but we can't do away with compassion. Compassion is my religion. And Jesus in Luke 6 says, be you compassionate as your creator in heaven is compassionate. And he gets that from his Jewish tradition, which teaches that compassion is the secret name of God. And compassion includes justice. It includes creating structures that allow beauty to flow and health to flow and joy to flow. So these are the four paths. And then you return to the via positiva. You don't end with via transformativa. You turn there and you got more people on board to enjoy and celebrate existence, this wondrous existence. So that's kind of how we name it. And I'm sure Brian has his own take on looking at this from the point of view of a cosmologist.
You want to go ahead and build on that, Brian?
Sure. Let me jump right in and say, just to give a sense of it, as Matt was saying, path one, the via positiva, is the path of awe, and that is what has happened in the world of science. To really appreciate it, we have to understand that for centuries we lived with the idea of the universe being a machine, and that metaphor continues for sure. But what we've discovered, an amazing thing, is that the universe actually began. It wasn't a machine. It's more like a living being. It began 14 billion years ago with something that's smaller than an acorn. Now, just try to take in what it is to say that the universe was once smaller than an acorn. That primordial plasma had in it the imagination to create galaxies and stars, hummingbirds, and human consciousness. All of that was in the matter at the beginning of the universe. So instead of looking at matter as being something that's beneath us, what we realize now that matter itself generated us. So we're discovering the universe is not a machine so much as a reality that's permeated what can be called cosmic intelligence. Here's the thing that blew my mind in grad school. It's just so that we're learning about how the galaxies formed. It's really fantastic. The mathematics is interesting, and just the thought of a galaxy forming. And then at the end, the professor said, "So, we still haven't quite figured it out, but this is how far we've gotten with our research." And then it hit me. I didn't say anything, but it hit me. Where is the word intelligent used best? As describing the universe that has the ability to create a galaxy, or as describing the humans that haven't yet figured out how that was done? So you see, it's a transvaluation of values, the way Nietzsche talked about it. It is, things are just turned upside down. What we thought was beneath us turns out to be supremely beyond us, because it has the intelligence for bringing forth the galaxies, the stars, life, the awareness of life. So the more we take in the nature of the universe, the more we become awestruck if we have deconstructed the background assumptions of scientific materialism. They go together. It's realizing the universe is a vast, majestic place and developing a soul that can respond to that majesty.
I love the poetic way you describe it. It's also based in science. Matthew, I'd love to go back to you and talk a little bit about the Via Creativa and why that particular path is so vital for us right now.
Yes, without imagination, we're doomed. But I do think that our creativity, our imagination, is the best thing our species has going for us. Now, unfortunately, we often use it for stupid purposes, like more bombs, more nuclear weapons, more nuclear submarines, et cetera, et cetera. We use it to play out our unresolved issues. And of course, a lot of our intelligence, a lot of our technology, a lot of our money, a lot of our talent goes into that. I think the latest count is we're spending $59,000 a second, the human race is, on weapons, on war. And America is spending 51% of that. So that's folly. So knowledge is not enough. We need wisdom too. And at the heart of wisdom is our creativity. Hildegard of Bingen, the great 12th century mystic scientist, said that wisdom is contained in all creative works. So the possibility is still there that humanity can tap into its wisdom and its creativity and use it for the sake of the survival of our species, not for the sake of one nation destroying another, or one race, or whatever our ideologies are. One of my favorite meditations is on Voyager 1, I think I have that right, that took this picture on leaving the solar system, and Earth comes out as a tiny light from which it began, of course. And I just think that picture is so iconic because it tells us again how humble we are, how modest the earth is, and yet how special. And part of the specialness is that we've inherited as a species this power of creativity that that can save us or can destroy us. And I'm reminded of what Dag Hammarskjöld said, a mystic at the United Nations, head of the United Nations in the 1950s. He said, do you create or do you destroy? So what are we using our creativity for? And how can we do better and fast? Because time is running out for our species. And this is, again, where Brian and I working together as scientists and someone carrying the mystical tradition, that this has potential, so great potential. And one reason we know is that it's been ignored, that people are threatened. Academia is threatened by the coming together of mysticism and science. So this is kind of, I think, kind of a hint that there might be something important in doing what we're doing together.
Brian, you want to build on a little exploration of how creativity can be harnessed for spiritual and evolutionary advancement?
Yeah, and just picking up where Matt left off, and actually to tell my personal story with respect to Via Creativa. One of the amazing things I learned is that until the 20th century, the word creativity was never used with respect to the universe. I mean, that's an amazing fact. Because we thought of the universe as mechanical, we didn't think in terms of creativity. But so the first time it was used was in the 1920s by Alfred North Whitehead, and he was thinking in terms of this vast evolutionary process. But then I looked at it. I just kept reflecting on that, and then I realized, I was raised in a Christian home. And I realized, there was never any attention given to creativity by my church. I mean, we were good on, the sacraments and redemption, and confession and the holy orders, and we had all of these categories, but not creativity. It just honestly, it baffled me, because creativity is all over. It's in every direction, and it wasn't. So, I mean, people can't believe this when I tell them, but I challenge them. I say, okay, then go look at the Hebrew Bible or the Christian Bible and find something about creativity. And what happens is we go to Genesis. So God is creative, right? But then, no, what about humans? So the creativity as a category did not enter into spiritual thinking until Matthew Fox, at least in a way that is recognizable as one of the four paths, creativity. And to me, it's the most distinguishing feature of the four paths, because in the other domains of Buddhism and Hinduism and Confucianism, creativity is not a fundamental category. So that's what really swept me into the four paths.
That's amazing. Well, Matthew, I think I know you wanted to lead us in an exercise where we look at how to synergize these four paths in ourselves, and I think that would be really helpful. You want to do that now?
Great. Yes, I'm happy to do that. And this is I'll be inviting you to pray to the four directions. So again, we're calling on indigenous wisdom here. And I first learned the four directions, the ritual of four directions, from Jose Habde, who was a Seneca woman, but also a Franciscan sister. And she was the first to introduce me to the four paths. But of course, I've had many other indigenous leaders since then. But here's a prayer and notice that number 4 is a very important number, isn't it? And Carl Jung loves to talk about God as a quaternity rather than a trinity. And but I will stand up here, and I invite others if they want to stand up, but you don't have to. But what you do is, what we'll be doing is facing the four directions you see. So first, given where I am now, north is this way. So we call on the spirits of the north. O spirits of the north, from where the strong winds come, make us strong, like the buffalo who faces into the winter winds coming from the north. Make us strong. And then we turn to the east, the rising sun. Spirits of the east, remind us every day of the newness of every day, the creativity that is baked into the universe and into all of us. We are all capable of becoming new every day. And to the right, spirits of the south, where there is warmth, where the sun is the hottest. Teach us the warmth of relationship, the warmth in all our relations, the softness of the heart that melts ice and coldness. Teach us the warmth of love. And the direction of the west, where the sun sets every night. O spirits of the west, come and teach us to let go and to trust that entering into the stillness and the darkness and the beauty of the night, there will also be a dawn with a new day and new possibilities, our hope. Now, those four directions, that prayer, really do correspond to the four paths, because the via positiva would be south, the direction of the warmth and the heat. The via negativa is, of course, the west, the letting go, the setting of the sun and so forth, and that trust of the darkness. The spirit of the east, where the sun rises, is the spirit of creativity, the new day, the resurrection every day. And facing the fierceness, the winter strength of the storms, like the buffalo does, facing it directly, that's about the courage that the via transformativa takes. That if you are going to reinvent our educational systems, our religious systems, our political systems, our economic systems, it's going to take a lot of strength, like that buffalo, because you disturb the powerful ones. You disturb those who think they're doing everything right and are at the top of so many pyramids and so many skyscrapers. So it takes great courage, and that's a big part of the via transformativa. There's never been a prophet who didn't have courage. And that's one reason I think the via transformativa is a fourth path, because you need the other three to build up your courage, as well as your skills and your imagination, your creativity, to outwit the powers that be. Example, Gandhi or King. But nonviolence, the practice of nonviolence, was a tremendous burst of imagination in terms of social revolution, nonviolent revolution, instead of revolution with more guns and weapons and shouting and screaming. So I think these four paths are well named by the traditional indigenous prayer of the four directions. And these are very practical. I do them frequently. Yeah, you can do it.
The convergence of the most ancient indigenous practices and this framing of the creation spirituality. It's really beautiful. Brian, I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you see this sort of synergy between those pathways really optimizing.
But I thought long and hard about the way in which science is discovering amazing stuff But at the same time, there's this really interesting resonance with what the indigenous peoples have discovered a long, long time ago. And just to give you maybe one example, so we, in studying light, we came to a very interesting realization that the most ancient light comes to us from before the existence of galaxies. So if you look out with a telescope and you look out at Jupiter, it's like a light hour away. The distance light travels in an hour. If you go to the next star, it's 4 light years away. If you go to the next galaxy, the big galaxy of Andromeda, is 2.5 million light years away. So when we're looking at images of Andromeda galaxy, we're seeing it as it was 2.5 million years ago, because we're seeing light that had to travel 2.5 million years to get to us. So we keep going out further and further and further. And so you can see that simultaneously, we're looking back in time. And so we come to this time when there are no galaxies, but just this light is coming to us from around 14 billion light years away. And we don't have anything more ancient than that in the universe. Now, so that fact alone is incredible. But here's the next part. Penzias and Wilson, the two scientists at Bell Labs, the ones who discovered this, moved their telescope in a different direction, and they found the same thing. And then they moved in another direction, they found the same thing. No matter what direction we looked in, we can get back to this primordial light. And so this is where the scientists constructed the history of the universe as beginning from all points in the universe. And what we discover, without going into the details too much, but what we discovered is that this is going to shock people. But what we discovered is that we're at the center of the universe. Now, it sounds like we're going back in time to a geocentric universe. No. What we discovered is that our place, like every other place in the universe, is at the center of the universe. Now, that kind of blows your mind, but that's what we've discovered, that every point in the universe is at the center of the cosmic expansion. So it's an omnicentric universe. Now, this is exactly what Black Elk taught, that every place is the center of creation, every place. So, how is it possible that Black Elk came to that realization when it took science all these centuries? It is possible, and here's at least one way to think about it. In our inner understanding, in our inner intuitive understanding, we can recognize truths that are mysterious, like every point being the center. And then it took humanity centuries to develop an outer way of knowing, what we call an empirical science. So now that's the moment we live in, when these ancient spiritual insights have a resonance with what contemporary science is learning. It's not exactly the same, but they're profoundly related. And so we have the promise of an integral understanding of the universe, one that draws upon the entire history of humanity, not just the recent discoveries of science. I probably, went into too much detail there, but I wanted to give you a feeling for how the Black Elk was saying exactly the same thing that we're saying with the Hubble telescope.
Fascinating. Matthew, you want to build on that?
That is fascinating. I love it. This is what's fun about dialoguing with Brian. You never know what new things are going to pop up. Well, here's one new thing. Just this week, I got a letter from Buck Ghosthorst's widow. Buck Ghosthorst was a very important teacher in our school for many years. He's a Lakota teacher, and he taught me so many things. But it turns out that she told me in this letter, I'd never known this, that he was a child when Black Elk was alive on his reservation and teaching these things. And she said, if you go back to his dream, he talks his big dream. He talks about a boy who had a dream about a bear, and then things happened with this bear in his dream. That boy was Buck Ghosthorst at 4 years of age. Yeah. So there's a direct link between my education with Native American leaders and your friend Black Elk there. And I have a whole chapter on my latest book in Meister Eckhart on Black Elk and Meister Eckhart. But I didn't know that my leader, teacher, really, who led us in many sweat lodges, but also led me in a vision quest and some dances that he was a child whose dream about a bear, a scary bear, scared the tribe, but he shared it with Black Elk, who acknowledged it. So you're bringing Black Elk in at this particular time is really, really synchronistic. He's been on my mind.
Right.
There's a term I'd like to that we said we would discuss a little today that I'd like to bring in now, balanced turbulence, which I think is a great way to think about this time that we're in and how to navigate it even without sort of being able to fully stop some of the turbulence. So maybe share a little bit about what that term means.
It refers to this discovery that if we move far from equilibrium, well, first of all, what's equilibrium? Equilibrium is what happens when all of the sources of heat have radiated their energy in all directions, and things have gotten to a balance. So it's completely balanced, and this it's also not moving, not living. So equilibrium is death ultimately. So if we move away from equilibrium, and the phrase is if we get far from equilibrium, we're moving into realms of chaos, because now we're moving into energy that can tear things apart. And what the discovery that came about from a number of scientists, but the one who received the Nobel Prize for this work is Ilya Prigogine. And what he discovered is that if you get far from equilibrium, you find yourself in a domain of new order. So a new kind of order emerges, not from equilibrium and not too far from equilibrium, but in this zone, and that's where the phrase balanced turbulence comes from. It's not mine, but and so it's an image. It's an image of what we are aiming at as humans. In a certain sense, and Matt will have things to say about this for sure, but to have ultimate balance as an aim misses this discovery of creativity requiring a certain amount of turbulence. And this is summarized in a great way by Alfred Kroeber, who is an anthropologist at University of California, Berkeley. I mean, this is a brilliant summary. He said, the ideal condition for a human being is not bovine placidity. It is rather the highest degree of tension that can be born creatively. Isn't that great?
That's great. Yeah.
Just a beautiful statement. And then spiritual practice, as Matt was saying, drawing in the power from the north. Spiritual practice is building up the strength to take in the chaos and not be ripped apart by it. And it's very important not to take on too much, because then what good are you when you're catatonic?
That's great. Matthew?
Well, I'm reminded of that wonderful phrase of the jumping universe that the English architect speaks of, and I can't remember, Jenkins. I think his name is Jenkins.
Charles Jenkins,
yeah. But that's why the via creativa, the creativity, is so central. I see the first two paths, the via positiva, the via negativa, lead up to the via creativa. And then the via transformativa leads away from it. So in the center is creativity. And I think that creativity is in the center of Einstein's universe that moved us beyond the mechanism. And he said what he wanted to do his whole life was study light. So all this energy is that you're talking about, and the chaos, and of course that science in the 1960s, began to acknowledge that chaos is integral to the ellipses of the planets and the weather and everything else is going on. So just what you say, learning to live with the chaos, with the disequilibrium. And but that's what creativity is. I mean, over my shoulder, I have a painting in honor of a great musician, American musician, and that's what improvisation is. I think it's gathering things that are going on and making one beautiful moment of it, or a river of it. And of course, everything is continually being created, and that's in that way. Now, you said earlier that the Bible doesn't talk about creativity, but I think it does when it tells us we're images and likenesses of God, of the Creator. Therefore, I think it's saying something very profound about what the mystics call our co-creation. This was not emphasized, as you said, by church structures. They don't want to remind people how creative people are. No one at the top wants to remind people of how creative they are. But I do think that the new science and the pulsating of this balanced turbulence is proof that we're alive, as you say, and the opposite is being dead. So this aliveness, what makes us alive, and I think responding to need, such as we're all called to respond to today, not just in terms of climate change, but in terms of the struggle of democracy and redefining how to govern one another and so forth, how we govern ourselves. I mean, there's this turbulence everywhere. And as you say, I like how you applied that to the buffalo, that it takes inner strength to do this. And are we capable as a species of learning this kind of strength, inner strength, before it's too late? And I do think that we have many examples. I mean, what's more turbulent than Gandhi needing to throw over the British Empire, or of King trying to throw over segregation of several hundred years and so forth. I mean, these are the real people at the edge who did something that worked, came up with something that worked, and people didn't die because of it. People eventually got on board and recognized its success. And so I think this is what you're saying, Brian. It's an occasion to call forth the strength that's within ourselves, and it's a test of our love for ourselves, love for life, love for one another, and love for generations to come. People aren't here yet.
Beautiful. Well, I'd certainly hope and pray that we are going to uplift as a species to this ability to navigate evolution and balance turbulence with grace and alignment with the affirmation of our planet. So really, you two, it's such a rich dialogue between the two of you, and I want to spend some time talking about how people can really go further with you in this really important new course that the two of you are co-creating together, which I think is really going to be so seminal for folks who choose to join. So Matthew and Brian are teaming up together to create the 4 paths of creation spirituality, embracing awe, chaos, creativity, and transformation with the universe as your guide. You can find it laid out in detail at the URL creationspiritualitypaths.com, creationspiritualitypaths.com. It's going to be a 7-week program, and it doesn't have any prerequisites. It's really if you recognize the importance of this philosophical and spiritual exploration, this merging of science and spirituality into a path of creativity and discovery, and being able to be a change agent for the good in this time, then you're more warmly welcome to join. So I'd love for you to each to share in your own words about your intentions for this program. And then, Matthew, why don't we start with you?
Well, I'm very much looking forward to working with Brian. I always learn a lot, and with the people who will join us, that I think we're all eager today to get a vision of what we talk about, the era of religion being over and the era of spirituality uh, taking over. But I think the 4 paths help us to nail down more, if you will, or to name the spirituality and the depth of it that we're capable of. And so I look forward to sharing this. I've found these 4 paths in the mystics, especially Meister Eckhart, but then I found them in contemporary mystics like Thomas Merton and Mary Oliver. And one of my students ended up doing his doctorate at another school on Walt Whitman, and he graduated summa cum laude. They said these 4 paths are the first interpretation of Whitman that works, that falls together, etc. And I think you'll find them in our great musicians as well. So this is about art and I think everything that humans set out to do. I think we're really talking archetypes here. And so I'm hoping that this class will excite people to take in the new cosmology, the new cosmogenesis view of the world, at the same time that it calls on their own powers and affirms how we can all be mystics in this way by traveling this journey via positiva, negativa, creativa, and transformativa.
Brian, what are you hoping for folks to get from the program?
Well, I'm hoping that people will discover in their role in the universe. And many, of course, already know what their role of the universe is. And so for them, I'm hoping that our course will deepen their effectiveness and their engagement in their role. This idea that each person has a unique role to play is related to what I was speaking to earlier about how we live in a universe where the center of the universe is everywhere. I mean, that our discovery is based on empirical, physical constants, and that's fantastic. But we need to speculate on what that means in a deeper sense. And so, what I'm suggesting is that our course will enable people to recognize that the universe itself is centered on each of them. It's a vast claim, but it is an amazing feeling as we step into that orientation. That we aren't just individuals in a mechanical universe. That we are part of a living, developing entity. That we're part of that, and we have to make a certain contribution that only we can make. Each of us has that particular gift to give that no one else can do. So that's what my hope is for the course.
No, that's a very inspiring vision. So let's do a quick tour of the modules. Again, they're laid out in more detail at creationspiritualitypaths.com. Module 1, Via Positiva, explore the universe in your own spiritual journey as an expression of supreme joy to inspire awe and wonder.
Yes. Well, to deepen our awareness of the Via Positiva and how we're being called. Like Brian says, we all have a role, and roles differ. But what is the universe telling us that stirs us up, that awakens a fire in us, that calls us to move beyond our small self into this bigger self that connects to the whole and to one another?
Module 2, uncover the deeper meaning of Via Negativa and harness the creational forces that dwell within challenge, chaos, and uncertainty. Brian?
I'm hoping to indicate the way in which the very negative aspects of our time, which are truly horrible, that hidden in there is a path through them and into a more harmonious world. Not just a belief on my part, but a conviction that we can learn to see an emerging order in the chaos.
Module 3, Via Creativity, merging creativity with spirituality to experience balance, clarity, and peace in turbulent times. Matthew?
What's me, the Via Creativa is about birthing. What are we here to give birth to? And Meister Eckhart says that what we give birth to is nothing less than God. And he says we all should imitate Mary. We all should be giving birth to divinity. And this would mean, even as we've been talking about it today, that we're giving birth to a new kind of chaos, a new kind of celebrative and joyful and justice-making and healing and compassionate existence and relationships and structures and educational systems and the rest that allow this greatness and this joy to flow. That's how I'd emphasize the Via Creativa. It's in all of us. It's in all of us. We're all artists. We're all co-creators.
Beautifully shared. Module 4, Via Transformativa, explore how the transformation of the universe mirrors your own for deeper grace, balance, and meaning. Brian?
There are different ways of characterizing the human species. And one of the most important is that the human species discovered a way to recreate itself while maintaining the same anatomy and physiology. To our knowledge, we're the only species that does that. We reinvent ourselves so that we become literally a new species because of a new form of mentality, soul, sensitivity. And so our challenge right now is to transform the planet from a time of collapse and chaos into a vibrant Earth community. And that only will take place if we transform the inner life of humanity. And so this is something that Matt and I are focused on, but I'm sure that the people that do join us are also already in the process of becoming a new kind of human being.
Module 5, discover the 4 paths of creation spirituality through Thomas Merton's transformational journey to reach the deeper depths of your humanity. Matthew?
Yes, well, Thomas Merton was a special monk and Christian monk, and he died in 1968, but he underwent many transformations, and you can really find explicit the 4 paths in his writings, and he was such a wonderful writer, poet, and with a beautiful sense of language that to explore how he talks about these 4 paths, I think is very enlightening and really a delicious experience. So we will look at his treatment of these four paths, and he names them so wonderfully out of his poetic, profound soul. And he lived them. He walked his talk.
And Matthew, I'll ask you for the last two. So module 6, applying the four paths to art for deeper connection, inspiration, and appreciation for life.
Yes, I think so many artists and so many musicians take us through these four paths. They sing of the joy of life. They also sing of the lamentation and the sorrow and the grief, which is part of the via negativa. And they also, of course, they do this through way of creativity, of language and music and dance and theater and so many other art forms by which we express ourselves. And of course, they also sing and tell the stories about justice and about healing and about social structures and restructuring and deconstructing. So I think that I tell my students that there are only two responses, really, two languages for our mystical experiences. One is silence, and the other is art. And so we can expect that the artists themselves are celebrating the four paths in and out, and in their special language by which they invite us to come on board.
And finally, module 7, discover how the poetry of St. John of the Cross aligns with the four paths to awaken the spiritual warrior within.
Yes, and I want to combine John the Cross with Mary Oliver to come into the 21st century, because her poetry too is wonderfully named in the four paths. But John the Cross, he didn't know about the four paths. He was playing out the three paths, which have been the traditional naming of the spiritual journey: purgation, illumination, and union. Creativity is not mentioned in those paths. Neither is joy, and neither is justice. So a lot was left out. So he contorts. His poetry is great, but his commentary on his poetry is very contorted. For one thing, he had the Inquisition chasing him. That would, contort anybody. But also, he did not have this naming that we have today of the four paths. And you get a lot more from John's poetry with the four paths than you do from his own three paths. And the proof of this is that practically every translation of John the Cross, who wrote in Spanish in the 16th century, into English, the poets, the translators all say the same thing. Don't read his commentaries, read his poetry. The poetry, that's where the power is. That's where the energy is. But in his commentaries, he's going all over. He doesn't have the four paths to help us to understand the depths of what he's really saying. So I've taught about this. I'm writing a book about it, about reinterpreting John the Cross so that he can really speak to us today. So we will spend some time with John the Cross and his poetry and applying the four paths there. And it's just wonderful what comes out when you treat him that way.
Well, I love the way you bring these mystics alive, and I know that that's going to be some really groundbreaking work with St. John of the Cross there. So again, there's more detail on this full program at creationspiritualitypaths.com. It's clearly going to be a really vibrant intellectual and spiritual adventure for everybody who chooses to go forward. Share a few more things about it. You'll get not only the 7 90-minute live sessions with Matthew and Brian, which includes interactive time, Q&A time. You'll also get recordings of every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There's weekly exercises for inquiry and learning at home. There's a Facebook community to create community and deepen your experience, as well as small group time to connect with other participants. And on the page, you'll also see a number of extra bonuses that are there to enhance your journey. There's a PDF commentary on cosmogenesis. It's a special edition of the new Ecozoic Reader. Brian, you want to share a little bit about that bonus?
It's a wonderful collection. It's a number of people reflecting on my last book, Cosmogenesis, and each of them draws out another facet, and I'm really excited about that.
Well, that's a great extra bonus. And then there's also a 3-chapter PDF on the history of the noosphere called The Story of the Noosphere. And there's one special bonus that folks get if you sign up right away by midnight. This is a video commentary with theologian Dr. Gianluigi Guglielmetto called The Four Psychological Functions of Carl Jung. Matthew, you want to share a little bit about that bonus, which you really wanted to include, who's a friend and colleague of yours, right?
Yes, he's translated about 10 of my books into Italian, and he attended Claremont University, studied process theology there. But yes, he did this video about a book he's written in Italian, not English yet. It's not in English yet, but about the four paths in Jung. And I think it's very interesting the way that he treats that. And I think it's good to see people from other cultures also reflecting on the four paths. And of course, the Italian culture has its tremendous history of aesthetic consciousness and love of beauty and the rest. So I think all that comes through in Gigi's work. And he made these videos just for the Shift audience. They're brand new.
That's great. Well, that's a very special bonus for everyone who signs up today. And we'd like to do that as a way to really encourage you to take the time now and really tune in about if this is the right next step for you. Read through the sales page, and if you get a sense that this is the next step for you, we'd love to have you. And it's you get all the details again at creationspiritualitypaths.com, and you'll get that special Carl Jung bonus when you sign up today. So we've kept the investment for the program very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you can save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start on December 3rd and run Tuesdays at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. But even if you can't make those live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. And there's a lot of other good information on the information page there. Lots of quotes from people who have really been blessed by Matthew and Brian's previous courses at Shift. You're really in great hands, and you're getting to harvest the wisdom of decades of frontier scholarship and practice in a really unique format. So again, it's all at creationspiritualitypaths.com, creationspiritualitypaths.com, and you'll get the Carl Jung bonus, the 4 psychological functions of Carl Jung, if you sign up by midnight tonight. So Matthew and Brian, we're nearing the end of our time together. It's really rich to have the two of you in dialogue. Matthew, anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering joining you for the full program?
Well, I just want to say that I'm looking forward to it. I always learn a lot when I teach with Brian, and I love the stories he can tell and the images that he gives birth to, and the humor that comes out. I think bringing science and spirituality together is absolutely essential for our survival as a species today. So I expect this to be interesting and fun and deep and challenging. So come on board.
Beautiful. Brian, final thoughts from you?
I love to reflect on the fact that the creativity really comes down to relationship. And where you can see this is the universe begins, like I've talked about, with primordial plasma. These are the elementary particles, electrons, neutrons, protons, and they start forming relationships. And out of that come 2 trillion galaxies. It's the same elementary particles as at the beginning, but they're in new relationships. It happens again with life. The entire Earth is surrounded with prokaryotic organisms 3 billion years ago. And these organisms, just single-celled organisms, started to develop relationships to associate with one another and so forth. And they brought forth whales and bats and palm trees. I mean, just through the relationship. So our course is about entering into new relationships. Working with Matt, things come forth that happen nowhere else, and this is true. We hope with you, entering into a relationship with us and with each other, with all the various ways that you can contact others. Thinking together about this ignites creativity, and I can just promise you that your creativity will jump another level by entering into these relationships.
So well said, and really that your passion shines through, Brian. Thank you. Well, too, you two have really been at the forefront of so much important deep thinking, deep practice. So thank you for creating this synthesis of your life works. And again, it's all at creationspiritualitypaths.com. And if you choose to move forward today, you'll also get the 4 psychological functions of Carl Jung. So thank you both. Many blessings. Thank you all for joining us, and look forward to seeing many of you in their upcoming program.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for the platform you've created.